Thanks for tuning in to the Canadian Private Lenders Podcast, the show about starting a private lender in Canada, the mortgage industry, and the real estate industry. Your hosts are Neil Andrino and Ryan McNeil. Enjoy.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Canadian Private Lenders Podcast. It's episode 36 with your hosts, Ryan and Neil. Neil, how you making out, buddy?
Very well. Today's a special day.
Very special day.
Yeah, we're in a totally different studio. It might sound a little different, probably a little better.
Probably.
And if you're watching it on video, it's definitely a lot nicer. But we've gone on the road. We're in Toronto. And
Roadshow.
It's a roadshow. I'm excited about this. I'm also realizing how bad my studio is.
Don't judge yourself too hard.
Yeah, sitting here, I'm like, damn, this is nice. It's kind of the same, though. I have the curtains. I just have a lot
there's
of
some
cables.
similarities. Square footage a little bit different, but all good. Yeah. So just like you said, Neil, very special next couple episodes here. We're on our Ontario Road Tour. And we're kicking it off with a good buddy of mine and very special guest, Doug Adlam from Indi Mortgage. How you doing, Doug?
I'm doing great. I'm doing absolutely fabulous. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. That's great. So where should we start, Neil?
I don't know. I was going to say, Doug, you mentioned that you like to stand when you talk. Do you want to just, when we're sitting here, you can stand and pull the mic up? Because you said you prefer,
like you're speaking to us,
you said you
not with
prefer
us.
to present to an audience, which I was like, man, for some reason, personally, I do this every day almost, it feels like. I love it. Presenting to an audience, it kills me for some reason.
As soon as you stand up, you just the jitters hit.
The jitters hit, and I'm like, oh God, there's 150 people there looking at me, and I got to have something to say.
That's funny. I'm the opposite. I feel more comfortable in front of a larger crowd standing up than I do sitting at a table.
The camera pointed in your face?
Yeah, totally.
Is that something that's come naturally, Doug, or have you developed that over time?
I think it was probably developed. I spent a bunch of years refereeing hockey, so you learn to communicate with audiences pretty quickly and be very comfortable with an aggressive and irritated audience around you. So I think it started with that, and I fell into teaching at university like right out of my master's program. So I was thrown in front of a crowd of 150 to 250, depending on the size of the lecture, and just really never had the option to even think about it.
Cool.
What'd you teach?
I used to teach intro marketing, consumer behavior. What else did I do? The information systems, and then I kicked off the University of Guelph's entrepreneurship program.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That was a lot of fun.
And then, how'd you end up mortgage brokering?
That's a great question.
And now, we're just gonna hop right into it. I'm like, how does it go?
Totally.
Where do we go from? Okay.
Yeah, totally. So I'm a second generation mortgage broker. My parents were mortgage brokers before me. Their primary though was in real estate. So my mom started a real estate brokerage back in the early 90s, late 80s. Always get it wrong. Cool. Grew up in a real estate family and never intended whatsoever to be in real estate or mortgage financing. I was going a completely different path and thought I was going to go into engineering at one point and build computers, and started in that and realized that wasn't my calling, and did well. Just to sit in front of a computer working on programming assignments just helped me really, truly appreciate the intensity of coding, and also helped me understand that's not for me.
Yeah. That's funny because Neil and I still had to go through our full 4 or 5 years of engineering before we realized it wasn't for us either. We're both engineers. But
I feel like year 2, I had that realization. I was like, oh shit, I'm too far into this now.
I had the exact same thing, Neil. I was a couple of years in and realized like, I don't think this is right for me, but I'm just going to tough it out.
Yeah, 100%. So did you do MBA, you said then too?
I stuck around and did a Master of Science in market research. Was marketing consumer studies was the department. And really ramped up my understanding of consumer behavior patterns and truly understanding why people make decisions in the way that they do.
That's
cool.
Neat.
Yeah,
wow.
It was very cool.
I feel like your time as a professor kind of like wraps up kind of what I've known a bit about your background in terms of the public speaking and the entrepreneurship as well. So I know you're heavy into there, but why don't we go a little bit deeper into your experience as a broker? So I know Indi Mortgage is a relatively new brand.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah,
okay.
just kicked it off in April.
Okay, right on. So let's get into that as well. And let's talk maybe a bit going back a step 2 about the evolution. I think was it Champion before or Axiom? Or was
true. Yeah. So like my history specifically, for sure. Yeah. So as I was saying before, my parents started a business. My mom was the mortgage broker owner of a company called Champion Mortgage. They opened in Mississauga back in 2001. Yep. And I got involved in the business in about 2008, opened a branch of their company in a different city. And tried a different model. Theirs was a traditional, we're going to bring on ex-bankers and everybody's going to be an independent agent, independent broker, and kind of do their own thing. We'll provide them the support and all that and see how the company grows. And really it was a support mechanism for their real estate business. And I took that model and analyzed it, and I was actually working in market research at the time. I was just building this potential business plan. If market research didn't pan out, a few months into it, I realized, again, I was stuck in front of a computer, and I was doing data analysis, and I worked on some pretty cool projects, but I spent all my time in front of a computer and realized that the path to sales, which is where I wanted to be eventually, and dealing with customers was like 5 or 6 or 7 years down the road. So so I was building the business plan, started looking at what could be done differently, and analyzed the mortgage brokering space. It was growing, but it was following the real estate model, the traditional realtor real estate brokerage model of hire agents, hire brokers. You know, some have more support than others. There's a lot more support today than there was 16 years ago, 17 years ago when I got in the business, even on the real estate side. But that was just the traditional way of doing business back then. So just kind of switched the model and wanted to try a new way of doing things and really build a team of people that work together on mutual files to really amp up that customer experience, that customer journey, and try to do things my own way under my parents' brokerage. And that was the start of it. And we grew from there to there's a whole bunch of other chapters in there too.
So what exactly did you try to create? Like, what was the model, the difference within the model? Like, what were the items that you tried to implement? Was it more client-focused stuff or more broker-focused?
It was, I didn't have a name for it at the time. It was years later, but that I heard from a business coach I had. The expression is HUBU, highest use, best use. And essentially what I realized, and to give you context, after my 8th deal, I realized that I was not organized enough or attentive to detail enough to not have an assistant. So I had 8 deals, I hired an assistant, which is insane. From looking back on it, but at the time, like, well, if I want to progress my business, I have a business plan, and I know where I'm going with this business plan that was written far before I got into the business and got my license. I need help with these aspects because I'm not good at them. Okay, great. So I brought on a client experience support position, and less than a year later, I think it was at deal 27. I'm like, I need an underwriter. I am really, this is not my forte. My forte is advice. My forte is solutions. My forte is speaking with clients, client-facing, helping them through the process. And I found that the underwriting was taking my time away from providing them better service. So I brought on an underwriter, and the 3 of us worked together for many years and continued to build the team that way, where it was building depth and collaborating and working together and building systems right from the beginning so that we were running a business from day one rather than just being an independent broker.
A sales position.
Okay. Okay. And you guys are based out of Guelph?
Yes. Based out of Guelph now. Formed in Mississauga. I opened up the office in Guelph. Eventually purchased, bought into the business, my parents' business, and then moved all operations to Guelph. I actually can't remember how many years ago now, but we eventually shut down the Mississauga office with remote flexibility and travel and all that. So now we run the majority of things out of Guelph, and we currently have kind of under our team, we have an office in Guelph, in Burlington, and in Toronto. We all collaborate. It's we all work together, and it's from there it's just ballooned into this massive business, which is Indi Mortgage.
Cool.
Do you ever watch Ryan Serhant?
No.
Or, you know who he is? He's platinum-haired realtor.
Right?
Yeah. I think he's considered number 1 in the world, maybe. Definitely,
Los
maybe not
Angeles?
definitely, but in the States. He's based in New York.
New York. Okay.
But now his brokerage is servicing like the whole country. Anyways, the reason you make me think of him is he had a video talking about like how when he started, he got to how many ever X deals. And typically they would say like, don't hire an assistant or an administrator until you're making X amount of money for so many years. But he was in that same boat where he's like, I don't do this well. Like the paperwork, I'm messing it up. It's taking me forever. It's dragging me down, and it's actually getting in the way. And so he's like, I immediately hired them before I could probably truly afford them, but it forced me then to go out and crush more deals. Plus, I realistically had more time, so I did crush more deals. And then he talks about like the rest of his team that he built out. And in his case, it was a driver because he's like, it allowed me to focus on chatting and doing the things that matter, going between all my appointments. But he's again, I couldn't really afford it. But he's like, that year I had to make a lot of money because I had to cover all the team's expenses and everything.
Totally.
But it sounds like it's kind of a similar...
Very similar mentality.
Yeah.
I'm of the belief that you need to, I see there's 2 approaches in business. It's wait until you have enough money to bring on the people that you need or to grow or invest in what you need. knowing that in that growth phase, you're going to get to a point where you're just not delivering the same level of excellence as you were before. And that's just a sacrifice you're making. And then you bring people on and then you're training them when you already need them trained.
Yeah.
So that's like, I'm of the approach and of the belief of, I would rather have the people in place before I can afford to have them. So that, because, when it comes to a business planning or approach, like, this is where I'm going. I know I'm going there. And it's that same piece. If I know we have to increase business because I brought on more people, then we're going to increase business. That's just what you do. It's not an option. You do it. And that's that whole stepping forward and planning to execute and just being prepared for that next growth phase rather than reactive. So it's a proactive approach versus a reactive approach to business strategy, I guess.
100%.
That's awesome.
One other quick question on that. You said you probably started around 2006 or 2007?
2008, January 2008.
Okay, was that like in the midst or the starting?
It was a terrible year to start. It was, it was incredibly difficult, incredibly challenging. I mentioned that those 8 deals, I did 8 deals that year. And that was a triumph in, given my first year in the business. But I was fortunate to have that collaborative support of my parents who'd been in the business for a number of years on the underwriting side and helped maybe teach the ropes on the sales side. But it was a tough year. Saw a lot of interesting things. It was a very challenging time.
I can only imagine. Interesting. Okay.
Just on the Indi note as well. So Indi, obviously, you've got your offices in Ontario. Do you have offices in Alberta as well?
Just give you a little context. And this is my version of the story and seeing this all come to fruition. So back in 2020, there was COVID, and during that time period, there was literally nothing to do in the mortgage space for quite a while. So we took that opportunity. It had been something I'd been thinking about for a while, and had been talking with Gord Ross and Gord Appel from Indi Mortgage back in that time. There really was this really great opportunity for great independent brokerages to collaborate at a higher level. And what would that look like? It was really exploratory. At the time, I was an independent brokerage owner, speaking to a bunch of independent brokerage owners, and really what it comes down to is there's a lot of factors as to why you want to remain independent and small. And for me, the number one thing was reputation. Mm-hmm. I'm in charge of our reputation. We're collectively in charge of our reputation within our own individual business. And attaching my shingle to another shingle on a house that is all under a different brand, now I have less control. And mortgage brokers, we're control freaks. We need to control the entire process. We need to make sure it's absolutely the best possible for our clients, that we're maintaining our lender partnerships and all that piece. So we were brokerages from all over the country, and essentially what happened was there was a number of us that all made this. You know what, we could actually do better for our clients and do better for the industry if we work together. So let's figure that out. Well, we figured it out, and we all ended up rolling up under the Indi Mortgage Solutions brand. At the time, they were the biggest force amongst us, but they'd also heavily invested in technology, back-end systems, and the ability for us to be a more efficient behind the scenes that allowed us all to, going back to this highest use, best use, refocus our efforts on what we do best for our businesses and our team members. So we're in from BC through to Ontario, each province. We have teams in multiple cities. I think we're at 26 cities. I think it's 32 with branch offices or with like satellite offices, I should say. And then just most recently, within the last couple of months, completed our licensing in Nova Scotia.
Let's go.
Coming to the big leagues.
Yeah, that's right. Out to the East Coast, represent.
You got it. Yeah, very, very
Love
excited.
to hear that, Doug. That's awesome.
Yeah, we're just finding there's great people across this country that we align with, and that's really been our approach over the last number of years. It was the fun. I really enjoyed that. I took on a corporate role, I guess, with the organization for a few years, and finding great people across the country. And it was it was really fun to find those synergies and to find the right fit, because you can't work with everyone. That's just not possible. Not everyone is a fit for for the team, and we're not a right fit for everybody, and that's fine. That's why there's choice in this industry, and there's multiple businesses, multiple business owners, multiple business models rather, and multiple brokerage options. Yeah.
Oh, that's super exciting, Doug. That's awesome. Kind of a different note. Neil, did you want to add something on there?
Well, I was going to ask about so with Axiom going into like Alberta, so you then, that office that you're working with there, how does that work? Are you guys, you partner and you come and you say, these are the 5 things that we basically must follow under our brand, and then your brand's kind of sweeping through? Or is it more like you guys are finding a hybrid with what they already offered? Or like what's kind of the model that you typically are doing with this?
Well, what I would say is we found a lot of commonality between the way the businesses were each brokerage business was operating. And there were some that we met with that there just wasn't that commonality, and that was fine. I think there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people in this business, in this industry, that think they're doing something truly unique.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's because our industry does a very good job of keeping people apart and not being able to have those conversations. Now, industry associations like MPC and CMBA have done a really good job of bringing people together.
Mm-hmm.
And I know when I first got into the business, a lot of broker owners were afraid to allow their agents and brokers to attend these things because they might learn something that they haven't taught them. Like that's basically what it comes down to, right? But there was also the fear that they might find something better and leave. And I'm of the belief of let's all get educated together and all rise together. And if there's things that we can learn from other brokerages, why don't we collaborate on that? So there's a whole chapter of my professional career. I was a part of a group of 8 broker owners from across the country, and that was the first. That was the first time I went from being extremely disappointed in the industry to completely elated with the industry. Was all of a sudden I was collaborating with these broker owners from across the country on systems and processes and human resources and marketing strategy and all of that, where the industry is basically, at that time was brokers are competing against brokers, keep everything really tight and don't share anything.
Yeah.
Which was very frustrating at the time.
Yeah, and you and I just had this conversation a couple days ago as well, where it doesn't make sense in the broker space to be just competing head to head for business. There's so much opportunity to continue growing the pie for broker share in Canada, right?
Totally.
So it's interesting to hear you say that. Cool.
Did I answer the question? I don't know.
Yeah, you did to an extent. So I guess do you find that basically Axiom's bringing in? Like you guys are bringing in the systems that you expect to have with that brand, and because I'm looking at is it kind of a franchise type model in some sense?
Oh, I see what you mean.
Or
so we're a national brokerage. We're not a network, and with that we have different teams that again run and operate great teams and businesses within the brokerage model. We do make collective decisions. There's a lot of synergies amongst the future direction of the organization. We have a clear leadership team, but they value everyone's voice and everyone's opinion, and we intentionally create advisory groups all across the country to ensure that each team lead, each brokerage team is bringing their is that they're being heard and what they're looking for, what's missing, and what's important to them. Make it through the channels so that we can execute on ensuring everyone has what they have. Each individual office, for example, they run and operate the same way they would have before as an independent brokerage.
Okay, but
with the scale at a national brokerage and with a think tank across essentially multiple brokerage owners, which completely allows it's a definite mindset shift.
Okay, but so there's still each location is semi-independent in the way that it operates, because brokers in a certain region may require something a little bit different than the way that they're used to operating. And so you try and specify to them a little bit. You're not trying to push you must be doing X or utilizing.
Correct, and to speak to that, when we the national rebrand from Actionable Mortgage Solutions to Indi Mortgage, which just happened in April, we've been talking about it for years, and it was finally executed this year. And even the name, the Independent Mortgage Company, comes down to addressing that fact that we believe, hey, you're an independent broker, you're an independent broker team, you should have the choice to use what's best for your business, because your business in your community is going to be a little bit different than this business in this community. And we're not out here to change things. We're out here to, we're working together and collaborating to help you see other ways of doing things and finding which pieces are going to be best for your business. And if none, then that's fine too. But you rarely find that when you start collaborating, oh, that's a really good idea. I could make this small tweak and that would really have a really cool positive impact on our team members or on our clients or on our lender partnerships. Yeah. So it's really just taking what we know and bringing it to new levels.
Cool.
Interesting.
Cool. Yeah, one thing when I met you about 5 years ago, Doug, one thing I found super interesting about you was your background in high level refereeing of hockey.
Yeah.
As anybody who listens to the podcast knows, I'm a big hockey fan, but I'm just curious to hear a little bit more about your background in refereeing and how that's translated to success for you within the mortgage broker space.
Totally. It wasn't on purpose, but I found I learned a lot through refereeing over all the years. I first got introduced to refereeing. Actually, my dad gave me the suggestion. He's like, "Oh, one of my friend's sons are refereeing on weekends to make some coin." Because I was 16 years old, and I just had the conversation with my parents that it was me that was going to pay for my university, and they weren't, so I needed to start working. So yeah, refereeing was one of my first gigs, other than working in hockey camps and that kind of stuff. So it was it really opened up my eyes to that path. But yeah, I did it for fun. I did it to save for school. When I was in university, my first few years, I go back and do showcase tournaments and that pretty much every other weekend to, again, pay the bills and pay for books and pay for rent and all that kind of stuff. And it was super fun. And then I can't remember, it was either 2004 or 2005, I had somebody suggest that I go to this referee school. That was put on by a whole bunch of NHL officials in Guelph. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm living in Guelph, so why don't I do this thing? Well, it was there that my eyes got opened up to, holy cow, you can actually have a career as a referee or a linesman. Like, this is pretty cool. And didn't realize that, there were scouts there from the NHL, the American League, the ECHL, the OHA, the OHL, like everybody was there. I'm like, there's scouts for refereeing? Like, it just opened my mind to a whole different perspective. So lo and behold, I got the opportunity to join the OHA, which is junior league within Ontario and the Ontario Hockey Association. And by Christmas of my first year, they had promoted me from a referee from a linesman to a referee, which doesn't happen too often. It didn't happen too often back in those days. And then by the end of my second year, I had an opportunity to try out and go to OHL camp for the Ontario Hockey League and made it. And my third year, I was a linesman in the OHL, which was cool. super, super cool. It was so fun, like so fun.
Did you give the calls to Guelph Griffins? Is that the name of the team?
Oh no, yeah, the OHL Guelph Storm.
Did you give them Guelph Storms? Yeah.
You know, one thing about refereeing is you watch the game differently, and it's anyone that I go see, no matter what level game, but particularly an NHL game, they're like, how do you just stay neutral? I'm like, after all the years of refereeing, you see the game differently. Sure. It's, what's fair, what's best. How do you, at the end of the day, as a referee, you want to stay out of the picture. You don't want to be in the picture. It's this game isn't about me. And, some referees learn that later than others. But ultimately the game's about the players and it's about the game. So stay out of it, police it essentially where you need to. And the most exciting games I've ever been a part of were those that people didn't even notice I was on the ice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I think any player would agree with that, how you just summarized that.
Totally.
That's really cool.
Was it a huge time commitment?
Massive.
Yeah.
Oh, it was massive. Yeah. So the year I got into the OHL was also the year I started my mortgage company in Guelph. And it was also it's just everything happened at the same time. It was also just after I got hired as a prof. So I was the prof.
Oh, wow.
I was was running a mortgage business, and I was officiating 5 to 6 nights, it was 5 nights a week because I used to teach 2 night classes.
Nice.
So if I got that right, I think it was 2 night classes and 1 morning class. But it was crazy. It was chaotic. Did it for 2 full years where I had all 3 going full time. So it was like it was literally 3 full-time jobs. But yes, the time commitment for refereeing is intense because, go back to the Guelph Storm, you don't have a home rink.
Yep.
Yeah.
Players have a home rink.
Yeah.
Referees don't. They're always moving you around because you're the third party and partisan official.
Yeah.
So it's one thing that I didn't completely gain an appreciation for until I started having friends get into the NHL as officials and start to learn and understand what their months look like. And it's wild. They live on the road.
Yeah.
Completely live on the road.
They're going everywhere.
Everywhere. So it's tremendous respect for it. I was fortunate that we used to be able to drive to and drive back from almost every game in Ontario, right? So, but you'd be gone 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, get home at 12, 1, 2 o'clock, and you'd be, up to work always sneak in an hour and a half at the gym midday and then on to the next thing.
Would you be going as far as like Sault Ste. Marie and Sudbury as well, or mostly southwestern Ontario?
So mostly southwestern. I go as far east as like Belleville, Peterborough, Kingston. Okay. I don't think, for some reason, I think I did a game in Ottawa, but now I'm not sure because usually that was an overnight. So I don't remember doing that. I must have watched a game there because I remember the arena. Sure. But no, Sault Ste. Marie was a fly out, so we had local linesmen for Sault. It was the only area that did until playoffs kicked in.
Okay.
Or I guess probably usually the last month of the season. But yeah, so you tried to keep you relatively close.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right on.
That's sweet.
Good stuff.
It'd be a fun experience.
It was awesome. The one regret I have now is not appreciating where I was as much when I was there, because I had the sights set on, that was a point where I'm like, okay, I'm my destiny's now the NHL. Like that's where I'm going. Yeah, I've made the decision, so that's what I'm going to do. Yeah. And didn't take enough time in the moment to appreciate and observe. Like, sure. Like my memory is funny. Looking back on it now, I can remember, my first game was on the ice with Steve Stamkos. Wow. Right? Like first game, and didn't really have an appreciation for that back then, but I sure do now.
Yeah.
And funny enough, just a few months ago, I found my game sheet for my first game, and there's Steve's name on the game sheet. Which was pretty cool, right? So it's and going through the Rolodex of scenarios and Tavares and Subban and like all these really cool, amazing players that I respect. Looking back at those experiences, wishing if at the moment I could have just appreciated it a little bit more, knowing that one day it could end.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. Hard to know that in the moment, right?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Well, that's cool. One thing Neil and I were super excited about talking to you about, we were chatting about it on the way up here, was your background with Finmo.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
This is a really cool story, a cool success story in the broker space. I guess how long ago did Finmo start, Doug?
Officially, it would have been 2017, early 2017.
Okay. I'm going to pause. We need a full break. I need a full breakdown of what Finmo is.
Sorry, let's go back.
Oh, okay, good point. So Finmo is a deal submission platform, but before that, really, it's a client experience platform. So it was built as a way to help brokers communicate more clearly and more simplistically with their clients, basically making it easier for customers to deal with brokers. That was the purpose behind it.
Nice.
It was and then there's a whole history behind it, but that's where it started. We really identified at the time, there's a monopoly within the mortgage industry. I think at the time Filogix had about 99% market share, if not all, and really, like, to no detriment of their own, the way we looked at it, like, okay, well, there's no motivation for them to put any money into making their product better because there's no competitors.
Yeah.
So what's happening around the world? Because at that time there was a lot of talk as tech was talked about a lot in the 2010s, 2015, 16, 17. Like, why aren't we having any innovation in our space? There were a few that were trying, but nothing had really hit. Nothing had really stuck. And we just got to the point where, like, we need to do something about this. We need to help our industry step forward because the world around us is way ahead of us. Yeah. Way ahead of us. And Canada's lagging. Like, why? We have you've got your hub in Waterloo, and now Calgary's a tech hub. Like, we have amazing, Vancouver as well. Like, we have amazing people in tech in this country. How come the Canadian mortgage industry is so far behind?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the roots of the why, if you will.
And to make it, like, for a layperson not from industry, it's effectively a portal to submit everything to your broker. So if your broker requests X amount of things, they can send that to you via this platform. And then receive them from the client, and then also have it packaged and then send it to the lender. Yeah.
So essentially, it was a few pieces. I would say it's an intuitive application interface that actually, like, learns as the customer's filling it out. So questions actually change depending on how a client answers the questions.
Nice.
So that you're, one of my big pet peeves, and this is from a consumer behavior background, like, we shouldn't be asking questions that are irrelevant to the customer.
Yeah.
So, feedback we always had on previous applications was, well, I don't know how to answer this question. Oh, well, it's not relevant for you. And then eventually it's like, well, why are we asking these questions? It's not relevant. Why don't we have it learn? Yeah. Let's create some logic behind there that learns. So that was the first piece. And then that was built with intent, knowing that, hey, well, you know what, based on how it's filled out, and again, making this easy for the customer to work their way through, wouldn't it be cool that as soon as they're done, like, we could probably, guess 9 out of 10 documents that are needed on this file just based on the application. So right into that intuitive analysis, here's the documents we need. Would you like to upload them securely right here, right now? So that was a huge step forward for the industry. The mortgage broker space was not used to that, had not seen it before. And unless you were using it or had gone through a demo, you had no idea that technology existed within the space. So it was pretty cool. And then, so then from there, once Lendesk acquired Finmo back in late 2020, they had been building all the bridges between the lenders to actually submit the deals. At the time, we were pushing to Filogix to complete the deal in Filogix. We were working on our own bridges. They were way further ahead. It was a big, huge discussion, and at the end of the day, Lendesk acquired Finmo to complete the front end of their product, and so now they had the product was complete, and they could go to full market.
So Lendesk wasn't a submission platform before acquiring Finmo, is that correct?
So Lendesk had, my understanding was that Lendesk had the bridges. Okay. They didn't have they had a front end, but it wasn't near as robust and as
they're B2B versus B2C sort of thing.
Yeah. So they really focused on the back end. We really focused on the front end, and you put the two together and you had a complete product.
Cool.
How did you go from, because I feel like everyone has these ideas. Like, did you have friends in the space, or did you have a founding partner that made you feel confident in going after it? Because like I know even from my experience, like I'll have ideas for certain things like this, and I kind of end up fizzling out a bit because I'll talk to somebody on Fiverr. Next thing you know, I got a quote for $35,000 to build something that I don't even know if it's going to work. You know what I mean?
Totally.
It's like, I don't know. And then it kind of fizzles. And I think a lot of people get to that same spot. Like, kind of what kept you moving it along other than truly believing in the product? And did you have a network or connections that you felt you could lean on that helped out with that? Or
so I mentioned earlier I was in a group of 8 business owners, and there were two groups of 8 business owners that were in these masterminds, we used to call it, and we had a common moderator. That moderator, his name was Greg Williamson. So he was moderating these 2 groups, and this between the 2 groups, he was helping us understand and identify that we were all having this issue. We're like, hey, we just need an easier way for our clients to work with us. And after we had hired a gentleman by the name of Carter Zimmerman to do some marketing for us and some online lead generation, that kind of thing, but it was great. We had all these leads come in, but these leads weren't converting because they'd get to this application that was,
not great,
ancient, and we'd lose the client. So we, that started it off to eventually Carter and Greg said, hey, listen, we're going to start a business, and this is the business we're starting, and who, would anybody like to invest? So that's where it all started. I approached them and chatted with them and wrote the first check. And part of that though was I was looking to bring all the market research and skip logic and application training and coaching and education that I had into the product, because I felt that was a missing piece, and also had a great team around the great team that I worked with in our mortgage brokerage business, that they didn't need me 40 hours a week. So it was the passion kicked in. It's like, the market needs it, the industry needs it, and really, and I've used this line before, but we built it because we were worried that our businesses would not survive. Like, as a mortgage brokerage owner, at that time, I was one of the owners of Champion Mortgage, and I don't know if our business will be here in 5 years because nobody's innovating. Yeah. Like, look at the money the banks are putting into their front end. So are we going to be irrelevant in 5 years? So we have an option: either be irrelevant in 5 years because nobody's doing anything about it, or we see if other people are concerned about this issue. And that was the motivating factor. We continued to speak to broker owners across the country. We're concerned about their future. We're concerned about their business, and they were willing to invest in a solution that would allow us to survive.
So, okay, when you went to get started and you're putting cash together, kind of what do you think it took to get to like an MVP?
That's a great question. Like, how much money?
Yeah, just like when you went out, were you like, hey, I want to put together $500,000, $200,000, $100,000 to try and get this to like something we can have out there? Like,
I think the first I'm going
where'd
on
your
memory
experience
though.
come in this? Because like I feel like you're brokering, and then you're just like, I'm a startup guy.
Yeah, well, I think part of it too was really leaned in on Carter and Greg's leadership in that space. Carter was, to give you some context, from Denver, Colorado, lived in the tech hub, was in the tech space, was, in a shared workspace with some of the most coolest up and coming tech companies, and really created a model around. He took the ownership on really creating this really cool tech company and answering questions and helping us along the way. Like I stayed hyper focused on the development, on the app, on the actual product itself, and then communicating with brokers on what we were building and how to continue to make it build better, and then bringing alpha users, beta users, and then full market.
How long was that whole process, kind of from inception to having like an alpha product, and then also going to the point of actually having a launch product?
So our alpha product, great question. I think it took about a year. I think we were 6 months to a year before we had the alpha done. And then we were on, I can't remember if it was 1 week sprints or 2 week sprints, but we were updating the app every 7 to 14 days. So we didn't really, we just went from kind of alpha to I guess we started our beta testing. Oh yeah, I guess we did do that. I don't remember the timeline, but I wish I did. I don't remember the timeline. It was just really all merged in together, and I don't know when we switched from that.
So
we were hustling. We were hustling. We were doing just-in-time fundraising. It was intense to say the least. Took years off my life for sure, but we made it.
Where were you fundraising capital from? Were you just going to a lot of your brokers? You're like, look at this great product that we have for you, plus do you want to be a part of it, sort of thing? So
there were a lot, all friends, family, a lot in the business. So those that were in the business really recognized the gap. A big win, I still remember this. We had a private equity firm that invested in a round, and we were like, holy cow, we've got it to a point where a private equity firm believes in what we're doing. This is super, super cool. It's not just within the industry. We now have people outside the industry. And what's interesting about that is in our early fundraising rounds, we tried that, and there were a lot that they just didn't see it. They didn't get it.
Too early on.
Yeah, well, and I think too, if you look at investment in the mortgage broker space, there's this, or in the mortgage space, you should say, in the Canadian fintech space, I find a lot of investors are putting money into digital end-to-end A to Z mortgage brokerages. And you've seen some insane...
Sexy and exciting.
Oh, yeah, it is. Oh, okay, we're going to invest in the company that's going to do, 50 to 80% of all mortgages in Canada.
Yeah.
That's where the money's was back then. That's where people were putting money into. They're still putting money into that dream, and it's that flyer, it's that long shot. But no one's cracked the code yet.
Yeah. It's not possible to eliminate. There's too much sales involved. The same with real estate, real estate sales, right? There's so many companies that try to eliminate that, but there's a reason that you're involved in this process. There's a reason I'm involved in that process. There's too many moving parts and emotions and things involved that I don't know that a computer can eliminate quite yet.
Agreed. No, I agree. Yeah, we're a long way away from that day, I believe, and it just really shows, and it's a testament to the human element. That level of trust and confidence and the advice. Would you take advice from another human that has experience from many, many other humans, or are you going to take advice from a computer? I don't know if we'll completely get there on all service and product offerings.
Yeah. When you're fundraising, you should have gone back through your game sheets and then just figured out who went to the NHL.
Exactly. Yeah. First targets.
PK
he
probably.
Didn't say he didn't do that.
Yeah, that's your point.
That would have been.
That's why you mentioned PK and JT by name there, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's funny. Would have been a good idea. Would have been a great idea.
That's funny. So let's circle back to the brokerage side of things, and specifically with private lending. So I know you've been doing this for a long time, and we often talk about how broker partners stand apart because they have a full suite of lending options they're able to put out there and present their client with. It's not always about the best rate; it's about the best product for the client, right? So, how do you approach, or do you approach it with your team when you have an opportunity for a private mortgage, and how do you kind of present that, or maybe touching on coaching your actual team of brokers, but also how they present it to their clients?
Okay, yeah, so the two parts. So we'll start with the first. So essentially the educational side of it and the coaching side of identifying those private mortgage opportunities, essentially. And and where to place it. Big thing, as you know, and the private lending space has continued to grow. It's grown significantly over the last number of years. I know we've seen our percentages of private mortgages continue to grow as a percentage of overall business. And it's just a state of affairs. It's a state of the economy. It's a state of qualification guidelines and constant tightening by all the regulators on the mortgage space. So really, it's that ensuring. Well, there's a few things. One, it's educating your team members and the team educating themselves. But the second is being very diligent and careful in terms of who you are dealing with. There's a lot of there's been a lot of scenarios, and we've encountered them where clients have come to us after being placed into a private that they really truly didn't understand all the details on. So our training focus is, really on opening up the hood, looking at all aspects of that private lender, the ins and the outs. Yeah. If it's a deal that sounds like it's too good to be true, it is. Mm-hmm. So figure out why. It's not about, private lending isn't about just finding a solution for your client now. It's finding a solution for them now that's going to get them out in the future. Mm-hmm. And I think that second part, unfortunately, I think our Ontario regulator's done a pretty good job here, bringing in a second class of licensing for private lending. I know a lot of people learned from that from the course that they built, yep. And I guess the association's built and all the third parties. But ultimately, unfortunately, there's a lot of brokers and agents that have not done the due diligence, whose brokerage has not done the due diligence, and they're getting into trouble now when their clients are trying to get out, or they have exited and have a lot of surprises. So it's really understanding your product, but also picking your lending partners strategically, where you're both aligned in the long-term best interest of the client.
Yep. Is there a lot of options you find as a broker here for private? Like, do you feel like when someone needs private money, you have 50 options? Like, because it sounds, again, the tone is like, it already feels to me like interviewing the private, whereas I'm used to like Atlantic, where there's only a couple options.
Correct.
And it's very much the other way, I feel like.
Yeah.
But so do you feel that way here, that there's just
totally, yeah,
there's
comparing
a range of products out there?
Yeah, I have intimate knowledge of both the Nova Scotia and Atlantic market compared to Ontario, and Ontario has way more private lending options for sure. Like, it's a very tight knit group of really good private lenders within Atlantic Canada.
Yeah.
Out here, you have everything. You really, really do. You have mortgage investment corps, and they are all different. You have with different appetites, different fee structures, different discharge fees, different renewal fees. You name it. It's literally just a monster spreadsheet to go through all the differences there. But then you do also have a lot of brokerages doing private lending that some disguise themselves as mix, but they're not. They're right. Private, truly a private lending brokerage, and that's a different process again. And then you have the individual private lenders. You kind of have, I see there being really three buckets.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I've always been amazed by the brokerage private lending model that's pretty rampant in Ontario. Mm-hmm. Do you have any thoughts or opinions on that, Doug? Or
so where a brokerage is lending out their own money, correct, and also brokering. Yeah, I think it's a major conflict of interest.
So this is when brokerages are basically they're leaving money in the business, and then they're utilizing that to lend to their clients.
Yeah. I think it's on a brokerage scale. I think it's a major conflict of interest. Uh-huh. I know individual brokers, like one of the ways to obviously grow your income as a broker as you continue your career is if you're saving money, which you should be, and leaving it in your corp. You have an opportunity to lend that out, especially when you know your clients so well. Yep. Mm-hmm. It's that money is great to be able to help clients where they've needed it, and that's a really great option for a broker or agent. But brokerages that are lending out money as well as brokering, I really think they need to be separate. There's just too much there's too much conflict of interest in that.
Completely agree. Yeah. Do you, go ahead, Neil.
I would say, what percentage of your business here do you find is private? I feel like I'm curious, just compared to what it would be like again in Atlantic. I feel like there might be a bit more volume. I think even just on an affordability basis, it would make more sense for private business here.
I should have come prepared with the numbers. I usually have these down, but just to give perspective, up until a few years ago, we were sitting around 3%. Private. Some offices in some areas are up to 30-35%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So it all depends on the region. Again, we're a national brokerage, so
True.
in different cities we see different things.
Yeah.
So I don't know what our average is nationally right now, but there are certain offices that are seeing as high as 30-35%
Okay.
private.
Yeah, the published numbers that we've seen are around 10% nationally now, which sort of feels right. Feels like Atlantic is light on that.
Yeah.
And Ontario is probably above that a little bit, if I had to guess. But
What does Atlantic look like in terms of the private share?
Well, it's really hard to get reliable data. So unfortunately, we don't have the exact number. But broker share, and we talked about this the other day as well, broker share is under-indexed in Atlantic Canada as well. And therefore, alternative is under-indexed because there's less options out there in the market as a whole.
Got it.
So I would assume growth rates are higher than other areas in Canada, but share overall, I would expect to be below 10%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
Yeah. Do you want to throw the Ontario market question there to wrap up before I hit him with the bonus question here?
Yes. I mean, it's something that we've been asking everyone, especially right now. It feels like it's a hot topic across Canada. And for anyone who's listening to anything real estate related, it's kind of, what is your outlook specifically on the Ontario market moving forward? Obviously, we've had a lot of rate hikes. We just had a quarter point cut. By the time this gets released, we might have news on what's happening on the next one. So before we go into rates, maybe more so just on the real estate market, and it can be nuanced to condo market, housing market, industrial, whatever. What's kind of your take and outlook on it?
So this is the crystal ball section.
Yeah, you have to give the absolute correct answer, and then people are going to hold you to it. So.
Oh, geez, all right. Well, one thing's for sure is I've one thing I share with everyone that I've ever worked with or collaborated with is there's no point in really guessing what's going to come because your clients will hear what they want to hear. But where the market is today, market in Ontario, if we're talking Ontario specifically, is hurting. A lot of there's very, very few real estate deals. There's a lot of lots sitting on the market. There's been a lot on the market a lot longer than I think the reports are showing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how they're doing that, but just keeping tight observations on certain cities. There's properties that have been sitting there for 6-8 months and multiple price reductions and still nothing, and they are in what would be considered, a fair price point. So I think we're in a little bit of trouble there. But that being said, there's deals out there. Like there are so many deals out there for buyers right now. And I know this whole concept, and I'm not the only person to say this, but yes, people are waiting for rates to come down until it's affordable. And it's the crystal ball. It's like, okay, well, how much more are they going to come down? Mm-hmm. How much more are price? Like where are prices going to land? Have they landed? Are they on their way back up? But we all know that there's going to be a tipping point where the consumer market's like, okay, rates have come down enough where I'm ready to jump into the marketplace, and it's going to be almost everybody at the same time. Yeah. That we know that's going to happen. That's just history continuously repeating itself. So when that is, I really have no idea. Like looking at the applications and on that side of things, people are stretched. Renewals are expensive. Changing cash flow. I think that one of the big things I've noticed is people forget that they're paying their mortgage payments with after-tax money. So like, oh, well, that's okay. I can do this. I'm like, well, hold on. Let's back it up. Your tax bracket, like if your payments go up by $1,500, has your income gone up by, close to $3,000?
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's the difference we're talking about here. Oh, whoa, hold on. Like, have you had a $36,000 raise over the last few years? Probably not. Yeah. So it's really having those realistic conversations about net and restructuring debt, restructuring your lifestyle in order to be able to stay up with where rates are today. I don't think we're going to see rates back in the the ones and the twos anytime soon. Now that being said, when they hit 2 and they went back up to 3.99 and back to 2 again, I didn't think that was going to happen either. So the one thing I've learned in this business is you cannot predict a future. If we look back 5 years, expect the unexpected. Yeah. 5 years ago, we didn't know we'd be here. So how are we going to know where we're going to be in 5 from now?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well said.
Have you seen app volume just go down? Then is that what you're finding, or do you find there's a lot of apps? People are just kind of waiting. Like, do you feel like there's a lot of money on the sidelines?
I think there is a lot of money on the sidelines for the right priced property because it's still an affordability issue.
Yeah.
Even people with money that are looking to buy into the market or looking to move, it's still an affordability issue.
Yeah.
So with prices the way they are, with rates the way they are, that's the big. Is there money on the sidelines? Yeah, there's a lot of people looking to buy homes and cannot qualify. So we're going to probably start seeing a lot more creative financing. And what I mean by that is, okay, you know what? I can't afford to buy a place on my own. I'm going to have to buy a place with a buddy. The first house I bought with a friend.
Yeah.
He had a job. I had a job. I just passed probation. He passed probation. We're like, okay, well, I can't afford a house and you can't afford a house. I got to afford a condo. If we buy this thing together, why don't we buy it together and rent some rooms out to some friends? And that's what we did.
Yeah.
That's how we got started. So it's, I think it's, the dream, hey, I'm going to buy my first place and it's going to be a semi-detached or town or whatever. And it's just going to be me and my partner. Oh, maybe we need to start getting a little bit more creative with how that's going to happen.
Interesting. Yeah.
That's the Ontario market.
What, just because it's so different than Atlantic Canada, what is that entry level price point now for a 3-bed, 2-bath in like a Guelph or a Toronto? Because I know they're somewhat comparable price points.
I know Guelph data a lot better than I know Toronto, but Guelph data right now, you could get you're about 800 for a town. 3-bedroom town, and for a detached, you're still around that 900 to $1 million.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, which is your starter, which is pretty crazy. You can find some, right? Like those are, I'd say those are kind of on the nicer end of the spectrum, but downgraded $100,000, like you're 7 to 9 in that space.
No, I mean, Halifax is not, right? But that's kind of, well, I shouldn't say that's across the province in Ontario, but in the major urban centers.
So if you add on $400,000 for GTA.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's your difference.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah. Halifax would be like 5 to 7.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
All right. Anything else from your list, Neil?
Nope. What do you got?
I got one more here.
All right.
Doug, what's the best pizza in Guelph?
Asking for a friend.
The best pizza? Roy's Pizza downtown.
Okay. Well, that was quick and easy. You had that one ready, didn't you?
No, I didn't. Did you send me that question?
Nope, I did not.
Okay. All right.
Just I've been impressed with how quickly you answered.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's great.
I don't think I even thought there. It just kind of jumped out.
Yeah, I like it. That's great.
Maybe I'll hit that tonight.
Yeah, good stuff.
Perfect.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being here, Doug. This is a fantastic conversation. Touched on a lot of different things today. Very interesting, successful background you've had. So we appreciate you sharing with us today.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, thanks for the invite. Really appreciate it. It was I love the way this all worked out, and I love the tangents. Love going on tangents.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate you leading those.
Yeah,
for sure.
100%. No, it's cool experience, man. So nice meeting you.
Awesome. Thanks, Neil.
Thanks everybody for listening.
Thanks, Ryan.
Hey guys, it's Neil Andrino, your co-host and your co-founder at Keystone Capital and Director of Investor Relations. I'm also a real estate agent, real estate investor, and business owner.
And your co-host and co-founder of Keystone Capital Group, Ryan McNeil. Keystone is licensed under the Mortgage Regulations Act of Nova Scotia, license number 3000549, and through FCMB, license 88799. Keep in mind, the views of this podcast are for informational purposes only and are not financial advice.